Hi, I'm Bergeron, and this video is going to be about in plein air. In plein air is a French term that simply means in open air. We're going to look at some of the tools and some of the equipment that I take with me, and in future videos we'll look at actually going outside and having some fun painting. Some of the best art that I've ever made has been in plein air. In plein air is a French term, and it simply just means in open air. In plein air is a very difficult yet very rewarding art process. Working in the outdoors can be made much simpler by simply doing a little bit of prep work before you go out. It's not difficult to work outside. It is more difficult than working inside, of course. But if you follow a few simple rules and spend some maybe 10 or 15 minutes worth of prep work before you go out, it'll be a lot easier and a lot more rewarding for you. These are a few works that I've done recently. So let's spend a few minutes and I'll show you some things that I've done and how I've made the process a little bit simpler for myself, and how you can make the process a little bit simpler for you, and it'll be a lot more fun. Let's have a look at some of the things that I use. Let's first look at some paper. You can make your life a whole lot easier if you use paper that's in standard sizes. So for me, one of the sizes that I use when I paint outside is simply 5x7. It's a very, very frequent size that you'll find frames in, and that's why I like working in 5x7. This piece of paper, you'll see I have created a grid that's simply a 5x7 grid that I've measured out before I go out. And that way my work will fit into an off-the-shelf frame. I very often will take a regular Canson watercolor paper. That's 140-pound paper. And I just simply take that piece of paper and measure out two 5x7 pieces and then draw the grid and cut it in half. And so this regular 9x12 piece of paper, I get two pieces. It takes you about 1 minute to measure and cut this, and I have two great pieces of paper to work with. I would suggest that when you're going outside to use 140-pound paper, it will give you the best product for the least amount of money. This sketchbook here, which is simply a 5x7, I've measured so that each one of my pages are 5x7. I like to keep things fairly small when I'm outside. It'll make you more mobile, and it'll make your experience a whole lot better. So I also like to use these small moleskin sketchbooks. This one's getting filled up. I think I only have maybe about 6 or 7 more pages left in it. Here's a brand new moleskin one. They have this great little elastic closure thing. And they also have a pocket in the back that if you want to keep stuff in. Again, this is 140-pound paper in the moleskin one. This is another moleskin one that has 140-pound paper. So you don't have to worry about painting it. It'll hold paint perfectly fine. So I always suggest to my students that they work in a standard size, whether it's 5x7 or 8x10. It's easier to find off-the-shelf frames, and it's just going to make your life a whole lot easier. One of the things that I use these side margins for is testing my paint. So lots of times I'm not sure if it's the color that I want. So you'll see there's little places where I've tested paint before I've put it onto my page. It's also a great place that if you want to draw a little thumbnail sketch before you do your final painting, it's a great little workspace. It also makes it really easy if you want to put your work onto a drawing board. This is a drawing board that goes in my backpack. But if you want to put your work in a drawing board, you can take these little clips and just simply clip your page on. And you don't have to worry about wind affecting you at all. It will make your life a whole lot easier to have a little drawing board that you can clip onto. This one is cut down so it actually fit into my backpack. And again, it keeps me mobile. If I had a big, huge one that I had to carry around under my arm or on some kind of a strap or a hanger, it would make it much more difficult to move around. This small board keeps me mobile and allows me to move around to wherever I want to go. So I want you to really consider the size of the paper that you work on and drawing out the grid before you go. Again, the more things that you can do inside before you go out, the better your experience is going to be. So you may have noticed that a lot of my work is a pen drawing that I've then colored with watercolor paint. That's the way I normally work when I'm outside. Sometimes when I'm outside, I will just do simply a pen drawing and there'll be no color on it at all. But I would say for the most part, most of the stuff I do is a watercolor painting on top of a ink drawing. For the most part, I use simply just a regular Sharpie pen, just a regular ordinary Sharpie fine. And I go through quite a few of these, but I find the ink is probably the blackest of any of the other inks in any of the other more expensive pens. And it gives me a really fine line, as you can see from a small drawing like this. It gives me a really fine line that I really appreciate. And I would say I've used pretty much every expensive pen out there, and I keep coming back to Sharpie. I just think the quality of them can't be beat. So I don't really want to talk about how I draw in this video. We'll get into drawing and how to draw in later videos. This one, I really just want to talk about the equipment that I use when I go outside. So I would say start with a drawing. This is how I typically tell people to work. Start with a drawing and then add paint to it later. Once I have done my drawing and I want to add paint to it, my favorite paint set, the paint set that I'm using the most right now, is this paint set from Sennelier. And it's probably the best watercolor paint that I have ever used. I really appreciate the colors that it gives you, and I really appreciate how easy it is to use. This paint set, which is the Impressionist color paint set, is, I think, it's a lot of fun to use, and it's really mobile also. I use these little wells here for water, and you'll see my paint set is a little bit messy. That's because all of this paint is still usable. So why would I wash it out when I can still use these greens and browns and yellows and blues in here? Why would I wash it out when I can still use those as color for my next painting? I seldom will clean it unless I absolutely have to. This is a number 3 brush, which I use quite often. I would say when I go outside, this is probably the only brush I take with me. I do take one other brush with me that I'll show you in a second, but if I'm going to be mobile and moving around, I don't want to pick through 10 brushes. I just want to use the brush that I use the most. And this number 3 watercolor brush seems to be the one that I use the most. So it stays with my Sennelier watercolor kit. Another kit that I use quite often that makes me very mobile is this that simply fits into a little Godiva chocolate box. And this, coupled with my black Sharpie pen and my small Moleskine watercolor pad, is the most mobile. This will all fit into your pocket very easily when you're traveling. And I do a lot of plein air when I travel. I would say this one is the most mobile though. This one all fits inside this container. It's this water brush, and if you've never used a water brush before, you want to get one and give it a try. This little container here, you simply fill up full of water, and then it screws onto this brush part. And then when you want water, you simply squeeze the container with the water, and the water comes down the brush and onto your page. So it's very, very mobile. So other than my water brush in my little Godiva chocolate container, I also have a pencil sharpener, just a regular pencil cut down so it'll fit in there. And then I have a couple of cut off watercolor pencil crayons. And if you've never used these are really great for going outside. First of all, you can use them just to draw that color onto the page, and then you add water to them with your simple little water brush, and they'll turn into watercolor paint. So it's a really effective way to get paint onto the page in a really, really fast, efficient way. You can also just get your brush a little bit wet and just touch the color and then put that directly onto the page. So there's lots of different uses for it. And I've just taken regular size ones from this watercolor pencil crayon set. You'll see I've used it quite a bit. And I've just cut them off with a utility knife so they're small enough to fit into my little container. So I'm going to show you a bunch of other things that I take with me. I'm a big believer in regular Ziploc bags. And so I sort of separate my things out, and I put my paper into one Ziploc bag. I have those two little sketchbooks and this one here that I've drawn my 5x7 squares on. And I also have some other loose paper that I could put onto my drawing board. And then I put all that into one Ziploc bag, and then I just simply do it up. And I have another Ziploc bag that I'm going to put my paint set with my brush into, my watercolor pencil crayons, and my little Godiva chocolate box. And then that gives me lots of options about what it is that I could paint or draw with for the day. The other thing that I'm going to put into here is a black Sharpie pen. And now I have lots of things to draw and paint with. If you like to use soft pastels or oil pastels, then certainly that's going to be what you're going to pack. But for me, this is what I typically usually take with me. It gives me a few options of what it is that I'm going to use. Other stuff that I'll take with me, other than that, is going to be some snacks, maybe a drink box. Maybe if I'm going out for the whole day, I might take a sandwich with me, or if it's in the fall or the spring, I might take some hot soup with me. I also have some just regular granola, and of course I'm going to have a hat. This is just my regular sort of floppy hat for outside. I'm also going to take an umbrella because, well, it's watercolor and ink and paper and rain don't mix really well. So if you get caught outside, it's nice to have an umbrella to stay a little bit dry so you can stay out a little bit longer. I also take an extra pair of glasses. I take a lighter. I also take tissue. I usually paint when I'm using watercolor, I'll usually have a tissue on hand just to clean my brush or to pick up some extra paint off the page. And I also usually take some kind of insect repellent. Of course, if you're in an urban area, you're not going to need insect repellent. But if you're going outside and you're painting anywhere outside of a regular urban area, insect repellent is a must. Also, sunscreen would be another great alternative, another great option, I should say. And last but not least, I take my cell phone. I make sure my cell phone is fully charged. If I'm going out somewhere in the woods, I let somebody know that I'm going there in case something happens to me. But you never know, somebody might care. Have your cell phone charged. The other great thing about the cell phone is maybe you don't get to finish your painting out there and you need to take a couple of pictures of what it is that you're painting or drawing. So it's great in emergencies, but it's also a great artist tool. I put everything into my backpack. Also, don't forget to bring your water bottle, both to drink and for paint. I hope you enjoyed this video about getting ready to go outside and do some plein air. If you are looking for any of the products that I use, the links to those products is in the description below. If you liked this video, please click like, and better yet, follow my YouTube channel and don't miss any of the upcoming videos. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.